right, people, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades, welcome. How you doing tonight? Davenia Robbins, good evening. Becca, very well welcome to you both. The weekend's upon us, finally. Yeah, I say on the Sunday stream quite often, a week's a long time in politics, and first week of Labour's not been too encouraging, shall we say. We'll be talking about that on the stream. It's great to see you in the chat this evening. Hope you're both very well. Yeah, a few issues to go through. I don't know if you saw the most recent video about the Labour government so far, so shit. But if you've not, it's just a few examples of why things are already not really looking like they're going in the direction that a lot of people would have hoped for, to put it mildly, put it bluntly. Oh, I forgot, there's background music. There we go. Brett James, welcome to you too. How you doing? Thanks for being here tonight and kicking off the weekend on the Brews at 10 with me, your host Lefty. Hope you're all doing tremendously well this week, as good as you can be under this neoliberal crap house, at least. Yeah, there have been a few issues coming up in the last few days as well, since the last live stream and my last video. I'm going to be talking about the 2-child benefit cap, environmental issues, with a bit of a most cringeworthy video from Ed Miliband. That's not the opening comedy clip, by the way. I do have one lined up. That's going to be Nadine Skinner's latest one. Of Liv Struss, pronunciation very important for legal matters, but Liv Struss down at the job centre after recently losing her seat. May or may not have been a former fictional Prime Minister. Yeah, Davinia, that's a great quote as well. I do remember that one from Tony Benn. If voting changed anything, they would ban it. They've not quite banned it, but they've got us locked into this awfully unrepresentative system. I'm actually going to be talking a bit about that as well, as it happens. Yeah, the whole PR issue has come up since the election, which I guess has been good. These are the things that we need to get into the narrative. Some parties are backing it, obviously. Starmer isn't. I've mentioned before about so-called FBPEs, you know, Follow Back Pro-Europe Twitter group, that really got behind Keith on the premise that he would bring in PR and make a push to rejoin the European Union. Been saying for a while now, I would say going on 4 years, that the hopes might be, you know, unachieved, should we say at least. Yeah, so I will be going through that a bit as well. As I said, environmental issues, climate change is a big thing. Obviously, still on a lot of people's minds. As a country, we need to know that Starmer's going to be taking us the right way to tackle climate change. Some of the latest from Gaza as well tonight. This is a topic that I will continue to talk about on the stream. I know that a lot of the mainstream media have fallen off of the topic of Israel's occupation of Palestine, Gaza more intensely and specifically of late, of course. But I will continue to raise this issue on the channel, of course. Despite the low turnout as well in the general election, I think it's pretty evident that that topic is still on a lot of people's minds when they go to vote. Right, okay, folks. Okay. I'm going to lead into the... Actually, just before I bring up Liv Truss, Nadine Skinner's character. Air quotes character. It's definitely not a real person, honest. Liv Truss. I guess this kind of picks up where I left off last. Gonna see a scene that I put in at the end of that aforementioned recently released video of the crowds in France. I believe the video was taken just after the announcement that recognition of a Palestinian state would happen within a fortnight. So yeah, just want to remind you, it's a great scene. It's a great video. I love the drums and the chanting, the call and response. These kind of things at marches and demos, I think are great to see, obviously, as well as individual speeches and whatnot. And I might be tempted to show you Marine Le Pen having a bit of a weep again. Always worth a watch, of course. Right, yeah, let's check that out. Oh dear. Oh well, small violin time. Quick reminder, please hit the buttons and everything. Thumbs up, buttons, notification bell. If you're not subscribed already, please do so, and you can join others in the chat just 60 seconds later. Yeah, please do help spread the channel around. Want to reach more people with streams and videos. Thanks to everybody who's watched the recent content. Picked up some new subscribers as well, so if you're a new subscriber, very warm welcome to you this evening, whether you're listening live or on a replay. So this is Nadine Skinner's latest, and poor old Liv Truss having lost her seats down at the job centre, and it's not going too well.
Hi Liz, come and take a seat. Where? On the seat? Oh no, I don't like seats. They'll turn against me and oust me.
Okay, just stand.
I will one day. I mean, they need me back as Prime Minister. Can I sit down, please?
Okay, so in terms of skills, it says you're really good at finance.
Oh yes, 7 times 10 equals growth.
Okay. It does say that you crashed the economy in 49 days.
Yes, but that wasn't my fault. That was the OBR and the deep state.
And what does OBR stand for? It also does say that you killed the Queen.
No, I just happened to shake her hand very hard. It's not my fault she's got weak hands. Besides, it was my big day, not hers. Selfish.
Right. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Couple of questions for you. Would you say that you're a team player?
Look, there's no I in team, but there is a me. T-E-M-E.
Cool. Are you a people person?
Oh yes, as long as they're not woke people.
Any passions?
Oh yes, food. Great Britannia food.
Okay, let's try you out somewhere. Hi, can I get a vegan burger, please?
So that's 1 pork and cheeseburger.
No, vegan.
1 pork and cheeseburger.
Vegan.
Get out, you wokey! That is a disgrace.
Okay, so that didn't go too well. Perhaps you're better when you just don't say anything at all. Liz?
Sorry, what?
Hang on. I've got the perfect job for you.
Hang on, I didn't do a concession speech, so technically I'm still MP of North, South, West, East, Norfolk. I'm back, baby.
Aha! You're just gonna just caught me in the middle of eating a biscuit. Biscuit and a brew. Yeah, do check Noreen Skinner out. Really like that clip. Of course, Liz Truss lost her seat. Stood there looking dumbfounded as though she didn't know what had gone on. Couldn't quite do the maths in her head at the time, apparently. Maybe wasn't even aware that she'd lost her seat. Didn't make a concession speech, which is the tradition. She buggered off, and as far as I know, not been heard of since, and may not again. Well, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Rees-Moggs sodded off to more or less do GB News full time. Hurrah. Who else? Well, it's not just all Tories. There's been a bit of sour grapes in the last week as well from John Ashworth, who lost his Leicester South seat to shock at Adam, of course. Oh, who else was there? There was the lady with the ridiculously almost made up name. Debonair. What's her first name? What's her first name? Help me out. Help me out, chap. I'm having a brain fart. Thangham. Thangham Debonair. That's it. So, they're two former Labour MPs who, despite Labour's gains in terms of seats in the House of Commons, actually lost their seats. And there's been some sour grapes from them as well. John Ashworth gave this interview on, I think it was Sky News as well, and he was just absolutely embittered and trying to sound excited about his new position leading some sort of crappy neoliberal think tank, basically. Refused to say whether he'd stand again in the next election. and Thangam Debonair lost her seat to the Greens. Thangam Debonair. I don't know. I don't know. Sounds like some sort of improvised acid jazz song or something. This next one's Thangam Debonair. Yeah. So, sorry, just getting carried away with some of the lighter moments of the last week or so. And I also mentioned, I think it was on the last live stream, yeah, we went through the being sworn in thing. Talked about Corbyn's little aside as well. This is a load of nonsense thing that was picked up on microphone. There was something else that passed me by though. I don't know if you've seen this as well. It was Clive Lewis, who is, I guess, still one of the better Labour MPs, if you want to put it that way. You can count those on your fingers these days, though. Made a little bit of a protest before he actually took the oath. So let's take a look at that.
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic. Until that time, I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles according to law.
Well, I do agree it's a farcical ceremony. The Crown and Parliament itself are supposed to be distanced. However, it is still technically His Majesty's Parliament. It is still, obviously, you can see these bygone, what should be bygone ceremonies, completely outdated, dusty, shit. It's got to go. The Crown shouldn't have any influence over what is effectively should be the people's congregation of MPs, an assembly, should we say. But people are also putting up their own citizens' assemblies, which I think is going to be something we'll be seeing develop between now and the next election, to be honest. Just very quickly. But he is, of course, not in favour of the UK having a monarchy, so decided to take that protest. I don't know if you've seen that before. That's just something that had passed me by in the whirlwind, this election whirlwind that we just had. Evening to Matthew Jones. Good evening. How you doing? And H. Lukill. Good to see you. Just having a quick look through the comments. Yeah, Jacob Rees-Mogg is a multimillionaire. Another one. Well, you've probably seen that video of him. I think it was made in the late 70s. Perhaps early 80s, I'm not sure. Anyway, he's 12. He's a lad of 12. And he's in the back of a chauffeur-driven car talking about how he's been learning about stocks and trade and this kind of thing. I'm sure you're familiar with it. So far out of touch, it's unbelievable. And yeah. Becca King Charlie sausage fingers couldn't be faithful to save a life. Also true. Right, what have we got up next? Got a clip from Grace Blakely. Yeah, Divinia, I was trying to just quickly back to the chat. I was trying to figure out how old Rees-Mogg was based on the sort of production values of the clip. I've not seen it for a couple of years or so now. Not sure if you have, but dude, there was a sort of documentary on him when I'm sure he was about like between 11 and 13, I guess, around there. With a, you know, he dresses exactly the same. He dressed exactly the same as he does now. It's just like a mini version. You know, the blazer, the tie, everything. The perceived pronunciation, which is pretty much put on. You know, he thinks that's how posh people actually sound, but that's not actually the Queen's English, technically. If you want to get into things like that. I'll try and dig it up. I mean, he's not a MP anymore, but he is going to continue to be a GB News host. And then it's something like, well, I don't want to say legend has it, because he's no legend whatsoever. Legendary twat, maybe. But it's said that when he got his first job, he asked for his entire year's salary up front, and he put that on the stock market, and that is how he made his money. Which, I think that's mostly coming from his own words. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Because, of course, ordinary working class people are just too thick to think about doing something like that, you know. Right. I was going to move on. This is one of the latest clips from Grace Blakely, who's been on the channel a couple of times. I mean, I've put clips on the channel before. She's not been a guest or anything. So it's her take on this new Labour government, which Clive Lewis is a part of. At what point are we going to seriously have to have this discussion that if you're with Starmer and Starmer's Labour, then you shouldn't be in Labour at all if you're a socialist? These have been going on for a few years now. I know some people are okay with, for example, Diane Abbott standing for Labour. Some people think that she should have stood as an independent, and which would have been more justified, or what would have been mud in Starmer's eye. I've no doubt that she would have retained a seat, similar to how Corbyn did, if she'd stood as an independent. But at what point are we going to have to ask ourselves, you know, what does that name mean now? Is the name Labour as a party now completely defunct? Now it's under Starmer now that they're in government, maybe. Arguably, Blair started it off by removing Clause 4, and since then, obviously, we've had 14 years of the Tories and a Tory Lib Dem coalition, although technically after 2017 that was a coalition for a couple of years as well, because they had to buy those 10 seats from the DUP. What does it stand for? What does it mean anymore? Obviously, to people like Starmer, Reeves, Streeting, these career politicians now, unfortunately, you know, Angela Rayner as well, there are still some staunch, I say staunch, there are still some socialists, genuine socialists left in Labour, but should they give up the ghost? Is the hope of Labour becoming a properly democratic socialist party too far gone now? Are they too compromised? Let me know in the chat what you think. Let me know in the comments if you're watching on a replay as well. Priest Monocle. Yeah, that's a good one. Alwyn Hornsey, welcome to the chat as well. Right, enough of me prattling on. This is Grace Blakely, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters.
The Labour Party has just announced plans to deliver a national wealth fund worth around £7 billion. Now, on the surface, this sounds like it could be good. You know, it could invest in infrastructure in different parts of the country. It could reduce regional inequality, create jobs, promote decarbonisation, all these great things that we want to see. The issue is that, of course, the Labour Party are planning to do it via the private sector. So Rachel Reeves has said that it's actually going to act more like a concierge service for international investors trying to invest in the UK. Now, we know historically the disastrous record of things like private financing, where private companies and investors have undertaken investment on behalf of the British state. It is often more expensive because, you know, private companies tend to pay higher interest rates. There's no accountability when stuff goes wrong. That is a really big problem with these schemes. And there have been loads of disasters and scandals associated with PFI that have, you know, created a kind of disastrous record, and even the National Audit Office has said so. So that's going to be a problem. The other issue is that they're trying to do this. They're creating this new National Wealth Fund out of the British Business Bank. Now, what do we know about the British Business Bank? I wrote about it in Vulture Capitalism in regards to the Greensill scandal. So Greensill was this big international kind of, you know, company / financial institution that was coming under strain during the pandemic. It had, however, happened to hire one David Cameron.
Yes, David Cameron, of course, had his hands in that. That's something that he doesn't really get pressed on by the mainstream media, just to come in to the clip at this point. And then obviously he was reappointed as Foreign Secretary by, you know, a very technical way in, by getting him into the House of Lords rather than having to stand in a seat. And heaven forfend that the people, the population, the citizens of the United Kingdom would get a chance, or at least in his constituency, or whichever seat he would stand in. Heaven forfend that they would have a say in it. Of course not. We don't deserve that, for we're just little people, little drones. And no, in all seriousness, that sort of thing's got to go as well. These other roads and ways into having an influence on policy without being elected, put that on top of the arguments for a republic that we heard earlier. And yeah, you see what I'm getting at. But let's hear the rest from Grace.
As an advisor, i.e. a lobbyist on its behalf, and David Cameron started pinging off messages to various different people throughout the British state saying you need to give Greensill a loan. Now, he was rejected a few times until the British Business Bank swooped in and decided to give Greensill millions, hundreds of millions actually, of pounds worth of loans. Obviously, the company eventually collapsed, and now the British Business Bank is basically being asked, where has all this money gone? Where was your due diligence? And, you know, ultimately, I think this is going to be a real problem for Labour, because they're trying to promote corporate welfare and get private corporations to kind of undertake investment on their behalf, taking a cut in the process, rather than just doing the investment that needs to be done and making sure that the people doing that are accountable to people and are doing.
Check the Vulture Capitalism by Grace Blakely out as well. And she's made some great appearances on TV panels and stuff lately also. Davinia, yeah, that's a good point. All they have to do in the House of Lords is show up. Some of them barely sit at any of the sessions, and they go to they just literally have to go in and sign a thing, and they get the 400 quid, which I don't know if is it 365 exactly? I thought it was near 400 quid a day. And some of them just roll up in a taxi, sign the thing, get back in the taxi, and fuck off to a posh dinner at Nobs or Us, wherever the fuck they eat, at the Savoy or wherever. And that is the lifestyle. That is the lifestyle. of the upper classes. Because that's what they are. Even that's the irony of our parliament, as well as it being a shit first past the post system. By definition, as soon as you're elected, you become a member of the upper class. So, however socialist you are, you then become a member of the upper class. Just, you know, anyone, Zara Sultana, Jeremy Corbyn, any socialist in Parliament, which is kind of ironic. But these are some people who are arguably trying to not bring the system down, but change the system from within. You know what I mean? And I think, anyway, let's just get into what Grace was saying there. We're not going to see any public investment. We're not going to see, because Starmer's and Reeves is as well, especially so afraid of being quoted and having to say that there's going to be an increase in tax, for example. Also, prior to the election, we know that they've had meetings with businesses about what would be on the table, for example, if they won the election, which was looking likely for a while. I was hoping it would go more towards the way the local elections went. However, that wasn't the case. But there were still some good gains for socialists and the Greens. That notwithstanding. So like I was saying, he's terrified of saying that he's going to raise taxes because of who he's been pandering to. He's also had some conversations with the far right, from what I understand. For example, the aforementioned Marine Le Pen in France. He's been cozying up to quite a sordid cast of characters. Let's put it that way. There is background music. What else? Well, in the last week, like I said in the last video, Reeves has refused to rule out that she's committed to building council houses. Wes Streeting, shut up Wesley, has basically trashed the NHS for asking for money, for investment, which it's been lacking for a decade and a half at least, and implying that it should be basically treated like an asset on the frigging stock market, and if you don't make money, then you don't get any money. Worrying signs, very worrying signs. This isn't what we want to be hearing from our health secretary by any means. Starmerbot. Yeah, and that's just week one. The thing with Wesley...
But shut up, Wesley!
Streeting is that when he has made these statements, he sounds a weird combination of angry and confident, as though what he is thinking is on everyone's minds. But it isn't. He's trying to force this into people's heads. That we should, all start piling on the NHS for daring asking for money? What a lickspittle. Such a... And he's on notice. He's on a majority of 500, I should say. He's on a majority of 500. Which is pretty low. It's definitely a reduction in what he had before, but that's not the lowest. I'm going to be doing some new content. Some of that's going to include talking about other MPs that are also on notice, having very, very small majorities. Some of them, including the House of Commons' youngest MP, Sam What's-His-Face, the guy with, I don't like to point out people's looks that often, But the dude with the massive head, the guy with the massive forehead, that I'll leave it at that. I don't want to go into that. But yeah, 22, and he's the youngest MP in Parliament. What else was there? There is, of course, obviously, the issue of Palestine and Gaza. Just quickly about Labour's current policy, trajectory, direction, whichever way you want to put it. Doesn't look good at the moment. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's supposedly wrapped in progress, but it won't take much digging or research. You just quickly lift up the veil to find out it's hollow sentiments. They will say things to appease, to pacify the public face, but when you look at things in a more granular detail, you'll realise it's bullshit. So, yeah, one thing I said in the last vid was that Starmer says, oh yes, we'll recognise State of Palestine, and then asterisks, and then you go to the bottom of the page, you scroll down, whatever, and it says when Joe Biden does as well, basically, or when America does, whoever's going to win. At the moment, the only rhetoric going on about the US election is over who may or may not be the more senile out of the two candidates. Yeah, very encouraging. So, speaking of Keith and bad policy, I mean, there've been some really good comments on the last video as well, by the way. Thanks a lot for those. There's been one or two obvious ones from the right, but trying to say that we shouldn't be criticising Labour already. We should give them a chance, but the first week doesn't look very good. And he's also had this to say about the two-child benefit cap. So essentially, it's like it sounds, you know, for families with more than two children, they're only going to get paid child benefit, for example, for two kids. If you're the third or fourth, or any number higher than two child out of your siblings, then you're essentially prejudiced against by the state for having the audacity to have been born at the time that you were and not earlier. And it's supposed to be what, some sort of deterrent to get welfare bills down, or reduce population, or something like that. That's a cop-out. It's a cop-out. So he's on, I think this is from ITV, and they bring up Ukraine as well, which I'm going to touch on, as well as Palestine. So they're asking him, this is the thing, while he's not going to be investing in public services, there's the two-child benefit cap. We can't afford this, we can't afford this, we can't afford that, says Keith. He's found £3 million a year in perpetuity for Ukraine. That is to say, until what he foresees as a time when Ukraine, NATO, whomever will overthrow Russia, and that is the only way that they'll stop this war. Not through peace, not through negotiation, but that's their method, that's their modus operandi. And they're going to get $3 billion a year from the UK government under Starmer every year. So during his term, if he is still Prime Minister, by the end of this term, that'll be 15 billion quid's worth overall. Though there have been rumours that the knives might be out for Keith already. Neoliberals stabbing the leader in the back to try and further their own careers. Would you ever hear of it? Would you ever hear of it? So, where's he found this money from if he can't find money for hospitals, if he can't find money to support struggling families, if he can't find money for schools, if he can't find money? I mean, for example, Rachel Reeves has been banging on lately how she's going to magic all these nurses out of thin air. Wouldn't a good incentive be that they're not crippled by tuition fees if they go to study at university, for example? Are these not the kind of ideas that they'd even consider considering? Okay, this is Keith on Ukraine and the two-child benefit cap. Fuck's sake, Keith.
You've also, while you've been here, announced another £3 billion for Ukraine, that you're going to keep to that every year. You've talked about that being a choice, to make that a priority. You've also made a choice not to spend a similar amount of money on child poverty. That's how much scrapping the two-child benefit would cost.
There's a direct link there. I just want to come in here and point out that it's been costed how much would be needed to scrap the two-child benefit cap, and it just so happens to be about £3 billion a year. And what would that be? Somewhere around 0.03% of GDP, something like that. And that's important as we go further into the clip. So the two are relatable, where you don't have to make cuts, you don't have to continue austerity policy, and also not putting money into war, which is another important factor, because if we had no part in this, we wouldn't be on Putin's radar as much. If we're piling weapons and money into Ukraine, Putin's obviously going to notice that. You know, it's not just Ukraine by itself, it's Ukraine and its allies, obviously, in this case. They've been getting billions of pounds, not just us, billions of dollars as well, from the US. And all this talk of simply overthrowing Putin by force rather than trying to negotiate peace, and so many civilians being killed on both sides. It's been going on for years, and they don't want to know about that. They're just obsessed with this overthrow. You know, it's got to be an absolute military victory, basically. That's the only way that they can see it as, instead of a peaceful pathway. Not very good diplomacy at all, if you want my 2 cents on that.
How do you justify that?
I think it's important that we don't underestimate the threat of Russian aggression in Ukraine. That is a threat not just to Ukraine, although it is, of course, a threat to Ukraine. It's a threat to our values. It is important that all of us, all of the NATO allies, increase our resolve to meet that Russian aggression wherever.
Well, here's the thing. In the run-up to the election, I think he confirmed that he was very much behind continuing to back Trident, for example, as a nuclear deterrent. There isn't a country on Earth that has got more nuclear weapons than Russia. And I'm not saying, you know, what's the best way I can put this? If you're going to directly fund and arm someone who's in direct conflict with the most nuclear armed state in the world, you better tread carefully. Because what I'm getting at is, if we become a target Who knows how long this war will go on for? Who knows how widely it might escalate? If we become a target, and Putin makes direct threats towards us for arming and funding Ukraine, then it's people like Keith who are going to be responsible. And yeah, this all kicked off under the Tories' watch. Of course, it's not just started recently, but that's just something that's been on my mind as well. And there they are together. Oh, just a quick. Let's quick bit of background music. Or maybe not. Just while he's on the screen, I take it you've all heard about this faux pas from Joe Biden earlier. I think this was yesterday, and he introduced Zelensky as Putin, as President Putin, and there's a clip going around where it shows Zelensky's reaction to oh God, to Biden making his latest faux pas. It should be said. And also, you notice, I mean, you know, suits are suits and whatnot, but Zelensky is the only leader who you'll see going to meet another head of state who doesn't wear a suit. And I think this is, to be honest, I think it's part of imagery, the sort of, you know, the visuals, the optics, the same way he always wore that military green t-shirt. And now here he is meeting another head of state. And I don't, you know, at the risk of sounding like my granddad, he's not even wearing a shirt and tie. It's just, it just sort of sticks out for me. The same way he used to wear that green t-shirt all the time. No, I don't have any love for Putin, of course, but I don't have any love for this guy either. I think they're a pair of dickheads, to be honest. Without getting into it too much. We'll just finish this clip off though.
It is.
But you could pay for that, and you could tackle child poverty. You could tax people with estates worth more than £10 million, just 1%. Only the wealthiest would be affected. That would pay more than pay for scrapping that two-child cap. Why?
How dare she? How dare she speak sense to Keith? Have you not seen the flag behind him? Have you not seen the flag, presenter? Sorry, I've forgotten the name off the top of my head. But have you not seen it? Have you not? How dare you bring up sensible solutions and ways to fund progressive policy? He's Keith. He can only respond in the pre-programmed manners. Of course. He'll try and waft this off now. It's embarrassing to watch. He doesn't even address that as a solution.
Why won't you do that?
Well, in relation to child poverty, obviously I want to ensure that no child grows up in poverty, and we'll have a very clear strategy to deal with that.
She just literally laid out a very clear strategy, but you won't say what yours is because you're full of it. It's sketchy, shady, dodgy, whatever the bloody hell you want to call it. It's all that and more. He's got absolutely nothing to say in response to it in terms of being able to rule out why that suggestion would not be sensible.
That will, of course, be about the money coming into each household. It will be about housing. It'll be.
This is an easy fix, isn't it? It would make a big difference.
Oh, there's no
300,000 children.
There's no
300,000 children, Keith. That's pretty much the end of the clip. 300,000 children. And we're supposedly the sixth richest nation in the world, and we can't even support our own children. So we've heard Streeting have a snipe at what he called, and I believe his actual words were, begging bowl culture to do with the NHS. And now Keith is doing the same on child benefits. Unbelievable. Well, not unbelievable, obviously. We knew about this, we called this, we saw this coming. You don't have to be Sherlock frigging Holmes to, see this sort of thing coming when, if you've been following Starmer's career, if you are a former member of the Labour Party, for example, it's very obvious to a lot of us. And Keith's been very upfront about supporting Ukraine, and he's obviously been taking swipes at Putin regarding civilian deaths, regarding all kinds of the atrocities of war. The atrocities of war. We know them. We know them all. But he's still blind to the state of Gazans. Just as I mentioned earlier, this dressed up version of calling for a recognition of a state of Palestine is dreadful. But there have been a couple of statements recently, and as always, I'll remind you, there are a lot of clips going around, but some of them are too harrowing for me to show on this live stream. Antonio Guterres, the Director General of the United Nations, is one of the people who's spoken out about the situation in Palestine, Gaza specifically, in the last couple of days. And also Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization has made a statement regarding famine, regarding lack of water and supplies. Some of the latest stats, the latest on the situation in Gaza, is as ever shocking. So, going to be going into that now, of course, on My Left Eye. We always continue to support Gaza, to support Palestine, call for a ceasefire and a free Palestinian, proper recognition of a Palestinian state, not just saying, oh, if Genocide Joe says so, then it's okay. Or if MAGA, hat, fuckface, what's he called, Trump, that it's nowhere near good enough. It's nowhere near good enough from Keith. But Antonio Guterres is going to lay this out now.
Just when we thought it couldn't get any worse in Gaza, somehow, appallingly, civilians are being pushed into ever deeper circles of hell. Recent days have brought yet more evacuation orders by Israeli authorities, yet more civilian suffering, and yet more bloodshed. Palestinians in Gaza keep being forced to move like human pinballs across a landscape of destruction and death. The extreme level of fighting and devastation is incomprehensible and inexcusable, and the level of chaos is affecting every Palestinian in Gaza and all those desperately trying to get aid to them. Nowhere is safe. Everywhere is a potential killing zone.
Well, I think that's one of the worst parts about this occupation, the ongoing bombardment, it's clear that there's no distinction between civilians and Hamas through the eyes of the IDF and Benjamin Netanyahu. It's so indiscriminate that it's definitely, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if it went so far as gaslighting to create so-called safe zones, refugee camps, and then to attack, bomb them. It's appalling. It's appalling. Ever since this escalated in October, I'm sure Netanyahu was hoping that this would be sort of his version of the September 11th attacks, World Trade Center, Pentagon, and that the whole world, or at least the Western world, he would hope, would rally behind him. However, that's turned out not to be the case, and we've seen some absolutely massive support for Palestine, excuse me, coming from the public, but also international governing bodies like the United Nations as well. And there have been arrest warrants issued by the ICC, the International Criminal Court, as well. He, in his increasing desperation, though, unfortunately, is tightening the screw on Gazans, on Palestinians, and hoping that he can break their will and break their spirit. But this is their home. This is their home. They're under occupation, and they wouldn't want to give up their home any more than you would, wherever you live, wherever you're from. And really, something has got to be done. There have been ongoing ceasefire talks on and off, and we've seen people snubbing the talks. We've seen ridiculous demands being made. There are intermediaries, of course, in Egypt and Qatar, who are trying to get the two sides together to come to some sort of agreement, and this is the way that it's got to end, the same way that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has got to end around a table, not in a bloody mess. Because if we have, as a nation, have learned anything from war, it is not to put ourselves in that situation in the first place, where we have to sacrifice so much life, where there's so much bloodshed and abhorrent things. The atrocities of war and occupation and collective punishment are something that should be resigned to history. To see this happening in the 21st century is very worrying. It's quite worrying. And Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization is also just going to re-emphasize in this clip the current situation.
Since the conflict began in October last year, more than 38,000 people have been killed.
So I just want to say, there's I've been pulled up a few times from YouTube. There's been copyrighted background music in a couple of the clips that I've used. I'm hoping this one gets through okay. Yeah, just quickly pointing out that some of my live stream videos have been temporarily demonetized, and then you have to appeal, get them to be manually reviewed. That's happened a few times, but I'm hoping this one will be okay. But please do help to support the channel in the meantime if you can, with super thanks, super chat, gifting, memberships, or check out the Buy Me a Coffee page as well in the description for this stream and for the channel. Sorry to interrupt the clip, but just there's a bit of background piano music there. If you're watching this on a replay and it's muted, then that's the reason why. I either got to take the video down, or it's ineligible, or I can mute the song. Those are the options. Those are the choices. So just wanted to point that out.
88,000 injured and about 10,000 are missing. More evacuation orders issued by Israel are further threatening the health of people who have already suffered so much Over 10,000 patients still need medical evacuation for treatment that cannot be provided in Gaza. Multiple evacuation corridors are needed urgently to the West Bank, Egypt, and Jordan. And almost the entire population of Gaza now faces high levels of acute food insecurity. Almost 1 in 4 are facing starvation. Very few supplies are getting into Gaza. Only 5 WHO trucks were allowed into Gaza last week. More than 34 trucks are waiting at the Al Arsh crossing, and 850 pallets of supplies are awaiting collection. A further 40 trucks are waiting at Ismailia in Egypt.
I can't believe that. I just can't believe that. 5 trucks worth for a population of 2 million people. Even if that's heavily rationed, that would support a few thousand at best. You're talking in the low thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, if it was heavily rationed, depending on which kind. And there's all kinds of supplies that are needed. Gazans are lacking in so many resources. Who's to know what was on those 5 trucks? How much use it would have been? It might not necessarily have been a great variety of things. For example, they need shelter, they need water, they need food, they need things to cook with, mobile ovens, for example. They need grain for making bread, they need wheat, flour. We've seen what's happened with the sabotage flour trucks. These Zionist bastards have showed up, shot out the tyres, thrown the flour around. They're happy to gloat about forcing people into starvation. It's the kind of warped, sick, twisted mindset that you're dealing with in these situations. But 5 trucks in a week is appalling. Something has to be done. Something has to be done now. And there are obviously there are ongoing situations in Yemen and other areas, for example.
WHO calls for the restrictions on supplies entering Gaza to be lifted immediately. The people of Gaza, who have nothing to do with this conflict, must not be the ones who pay the price for it.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Whatever you can say about Hamas, most of the people who are alive now in Palestine didn't even vote for Hamas to be in power. There were strict age limits on who was allowed to vote, and it was a long time ago. It's quite a while ago, when they were first brought into government. The citizens, of course, have rights. We all have rights under things like the Geneva Convention and other international legislation, which Israel, Netanyahu, just riven roughshod over. And even on stage to camera, almost gloated about how they don't care what the courts think. They don't care about international law. That is fanaticism in its purest sense. There's no other real way that I can put that. Deluded, ideological fanaticism. But as I said, the mainstream media, with other things occurring, seem to have turned away from this issue. I will continue to speak out for Palestine on the channel, as I have done since it was created. It's been great to see the community on the channel grow. Obviously, I would assume that most people who regularly watch live streams or the videos on My Left Eye will be in full support of Palestine. In fact, some of my most popular content has been around this issue, of course. Keep fighting, keep doing what we can. We're so far away, but it often doesn't feel that distant. We can see pictures, we can see video clips. Obviously, it's not comparable to being there on the ground. When you hear these statements from people who've actually been there, and I've spoken in person to people who have been there as well, it really rings true. Just what's going on. It's incomparable. It's incomparable, but we have to keep fighting and standing up for these people. Because if it can happen to Palestine, it could happen to you. It could happen to any country. Yeah. Right, okay. I know those were some solemn topics to go through. We have to get into the hard stuff on My Left Eye. Now and then, these are some really difficult situations that we're in terms of global, eco, social, and also military situations as well. So as we start to move towards the end of the stream, just want to slightly lift things up a bit. This is a very brief clip. I did say we'd get onto environmental issues as well. There's a couple of other things. Just want to queue up a bookmark here, if you'll bear with me. Yeah, just quickly touching on environment, climate crisis stuff. And then I'm going to quickly bring up that PR situation, like I talked about at the top of the show. Right. Okay, that's loading up now. This this clip here shows how much we're getting ripped off, not only in terms of energy bills, but what renewable energy can do for the precious economy as well. Naysayers who support new fossil fuel projects will often say that we're going to crash the economy if we move away from fossil fuels. It's absolute bullshit. It's scare tactics, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, I don't know this lad's name, but he pointed this out recently. You might have seen this clip. So I know at the moment, even though it's not properly nationalised in public hands, or the profits going back into the state, Scotland runs off 80% renewables at the moment, but they could actually power Scotland twice over, so they'd have a surplus, essentially. And energy is a huge commodity, obviously. So if you can power your own country 2 times over, that means that you can sell 50% of what you produce to other nations. And in this case, this would raise several £billion back into public investment or whatever. But nothing's being done about it. And this lad wants some answers.
Keir Starmer came up to Scotland in a private jet. He talked about Great British Energy, which was meant to be a company, but is...
Buffering. Just check the settings. That's also a very good point. He showed up in a private jet. What a douche.
It's actually an investment vehicle for public funds to go to private investment. I mean, these are not politicians that speak for the people. These are not politicians that speak for people like us in Argyll and Bute. Argyll and Bute generates a massive whack of the UK, well, Scotland and the UK's renewable energy. We export £4 billion every year from Scotland in renewable energy. That £4 billion could power Scottish homes 2 times over, yet 39% of people in Scotland suffer from fuel poverty.
Okay.
What is going to be done about that?
Okay, thank you.
Keir Starmer came up to Scotland in a private jet.
The response was probably thrown away. Sorry about the delay coming back on the mic there. Valid question. Why is this not being done? Similar to those solutions to the child poverty cap we heard earlier, you're hearing a direct solution to the problem, and then it's just deflect and distract, and we're sticking with our crap plan, whatever that may or may not be. There's so much potential for renewable energy in the UK, wind and tidal mostly. But while all of this profit continues to go into the hands of the powerful, the already wealthy, and they don't want to give up that power, they don't want to give up that profit, people are still going to get ripped off on their energy bills as well, obviously, of course. There's not being helpful to the ongoing climate crisis whatsoever, you know. There's been an attempted response. I say attempted, that's the pertinent word, from Miliband, Ed Miliband. He's now Environment Secretary. So he's been going on a supposed tour, talking about how he's going to be revolutionary for the environment. But I think this is all a facade, to be honest. We're going to see more U-turns. We're going to be, you know, every time they're going to make a promise, even to make a decent change, which they're not even doing at the moment. But in this small, rare example, they're just going to turn the pockets out and go, oh, well, the Tories didn't leave us with any money, and we don't have any imagination, and we don't know that the Bank of England is a thing. So there's no room for investment, whether it's through borrowing or raising taxes. Absolutely not. Can't be done. Just don't look at these other countries that are doing the things that you're saying, and they're proving to be successful. Whatever you do, no, don't think about that. Look over here. Look at this other important thing. Oh, look, we're stopping the gangs. Yeah, the foreigners are all going to come and take your jobs. And they're going to, God, you know, take the country back to the dark ages. And they're all criminals. And, you know, that's the only way it's going to go. That's the only way the rhetoric's going to go. I want to show you this clip of Miliband. You won't believe it. It's only short, but before I do, I'm going to quickly touch on PR, but this Miliband clip, it's only the introduction to the sort of last leg of this environmental tour that he's been going on, but it's so cringeworthy, and I hope that Bob Dylan's lawyers might be around. Let's put it that way. But yeah, just another bookmark I've got here quickly about how, you know, votes don't mean seats. I've touched on this quite a bit recently on the channel. And there's an article here, I think it was Richard Sedgley who shared it. Just bear with. So yeah, the Green Party won 4 seats when it should have been 40. Surely it's clear that Britain needs electoral reform. This is an article by Ellie Chowns in The Guardian. And there are the 4 current Green MPs. And it says, proportional representation would help all smaller parties, including Reform UK, but it's necessary to restore faith in politics. You got Sian Barry there, Carla Denyer, co-leader, Adrian Ramsey and Ellie Chownes. Yes, the author. But no, it's a great point. It's a great point. One thing I do want to say is when people try and say that, oh, well, Reform would have got so many more seats under PR, what you have to remember is that people didn't go in to the voting booths knowing that we had PR. They know that we have first past the post, and they vote within that system, and the system itself will influence people's votes. You know, vis-a-vis, still a lot of people think it's a choice between Labour or the Tories, and this is detrimental to smaller parties. But if people knew that the vote would count for more, then arguably they would vote differently. They would vote for more smaller left-wing candidates rather than right-wing candidates as protest votes against the Tories. The result itself, you know, 291 seats more than the Tories. That's the metric I like to use. Another way of actually working out majority is very different. You have to add up the opposition seats, etc. Putting the technical majority at 174 or whatever it is. Sorry, I'm nearly losing my train of thought here. My point was that was from a 34% vote share of a 57% turnout, and they call that fucking democracy. No way. No way. So it starts, our democracy is broken. It's time we stop pretending, otherwise the Green Party should have at least 40 MPs. They did come second in 40 seats. That's worth pointing out. I won't read through the full article. It's a democratic crisis that leaves almost 2 million voters unheard. Of course, 80% of voters didn't vote for the Labour Party in the election as well. What else does she say? First past the post is outrageously outdated in today's Britain. There's a diverse plurality of opinions, and all adults should be able to decide the country's future by casting their vote. One of the reasons I think there was a low turnout was that obviously there was a collapse in the Tory vote, but people weren't really enthused, falling over themselves to get out there and vote for Keir Starmer. While the number of votes, like per number, was down from 2019 and way further down from 2017 when they got 3 million fewer votes, the actual vote share went up a meagre 3% for Labour. Was it vote share? I think it was vote share. Sorry, I'm going off the top of my head here. I know they got about 40% in 2017. It might come to me. So yeah, 8.7 million voters who didn't vote for Labour, Conservatives or Liberal Democrats, but only elected 45 MPs. Labour earned 1 million more votes, but won 412 MPs. Labour took 10% more votes than the smaller parties and independents, but won almost 10 times as many seats in Parliament. Read that again and let it sink in. Or play it back again and let it sink in. Labour now faces a moment of truth. Will it embrace real democratic reform, even if this means sacrificing its tactical voting trump card? Or will it cling to power at the expense of genuine representation? Make no mistake, if Labour chooses the latter, it's complicit in the very democratic deficit it claims to repair. How can it claim to restore faith in democracy if it continues to prop up a voting system that resulted in almost a third of those who voted electing less than 7% of MPs? And this just towards the bottom now. Those who suggest all but proportional representation would help reform too. It's our job as political movements and campaigners to win these arguments at the ballot box, but stacking the odds in favour of two big unrepresentative parties in the hope it stops people we disagree with is simply undemocratic. The stakes couldn't be higher. We face a climate catastrophe, growing inequality, and a crisis of faith in our institutions. We need democratic renewal and a system that is fit for the diversity of modern Britain. It's time to tear down the old first-past-the-post system and build a democracy that truly represents the plurality of views across our society. The future of our planet and our society hangs in the balance. Well put there, Ellie Chones, one of the 4 current Green MPs. But as I said, they came second in 40 seats, 40. Very telling. I've no doubt that 5 years down the line, people will be disillusioned with Labour. Whoever the leader may or may not be at that point, unless they actually properly get back to the democratic socialist roots and elect a seriously democratic, unbuyable leader, then come 2029, which, oh God, sounds so far away, doesn't it, when you say it, 2029, you know, nearly in the 2030s. Yeah, but come 2029, perhaps the situation could be a lot different. Maybe people will take the Greens more seriously as a party. And they'll also support socialist independents and grassroots parties as well. Let's not forget there are 6 independents in the House of Commons. That's the most ever. In 2001, there was just one, and I believe he died recently, actually. He got in on a ticket for for opposing closure of his local hospital. Unfortunately, by the time he was elected, the category of the hospital had been changed, unfortunately. He couldn't do very much about it, but he also campaigned to stop other hospital closures. Kidderminster, it was Kidderminster Hospital, I believe. And yeah, he died recently. He was the first independent MP in 2001, and now we've got 6. Just over a week ago, the Greens only had 1 seat, and now they've got 4, even under first past the post. We need to change the system. It's clear. We'll get higher turnouts, better representation, less wasted votes. I mean, it just goes on and on. The benefits are undeniable. So that was an article in The Guardian there from Ellie Chones of the Green Party. Oh, excuse me. Just need a drink. Pardon me. So this Ed Miliband clip talking about green issues.
Since the conflict began in October last year.
Apologies there. He's finished off his tour with this. There's only about 10 seconds or so. Now, he tries to make up, I guess, for lack of quality with enthusiasm, as cringeworthy as it has. Obviously, he's been leader of the opposition before. We know Miliband to normally give sort of highly agitated performances and speeches, etc. Some of them are actually okay. They're certainly more listenable than what Keith puts out over the dispatch box and has done at PMQs and will do as he goes into government in the same over the same dispatch box. But Miliband, I don't know, this is just pure cringe. Pure cringe. He's done this little publicity video at one of the onshore wind farms. And I have my reservations that he will fall short even of his promises, which are not even anywhere near as close or ambitious as they should be to actually make a difference, as far as I'm concerned. Yes, all of the parties now, well, apart from the Tories, but they're done, will not be issuing new fossil fuel licences. But Labour also refusing to scrap North Sea oil projects such as Rosebank, which isn't great. They did the 28 billion pledge U-turn as well. So I'm going to have to keep a very close eye on whether they come through on these promises, ideas, pledges, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, I'll be keeping you up to speed. But this is just, yeah. You might want something a bit stronger than a brew after you see these 10 seconds or so here.
So my friend is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. So here I am on the latest stage of my GB.
Right, just once again, yeah, it is Miliband. You weren't, you're not hallucinating. He's got a ukulele and he's stood in front of a wind. He can't play the ukulele, evidently. I don't know if this was his idea. Whoever came up with this, how do you sleep? Not to mention a copyright issue, of course. I'm not sure if, that counts as a public performance, because he's not technically playing it because he can't play the ukulele, and he's tone deaf. Not that Bob Dylan was known for his singing exceptionalism, shall we say. But that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
So my friend is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. So here I am on the latest stage of my GB Energy Tour. So my friend...
Oh, goodness me. Goodness me. What is he going to do? Well, obviously, Starmer will get the final say in anything. I guess Reeves, being Chancellor, the financing of things, etc., will also have a massive hand in it as well. Don't give up the day job, Ed. Yeah, you're right, Divinia. I don't even know what to say about that. I'm sat here stunned. Didn't line up an outgoing comedy clip, so I guess that's as close as it'll come. I would be remiss if we started to bring things to a close without mentioning fantastic members that we've got on the channel. This is the latest updated list as well. I just updated this yesterday as well. It's great to see members in the chat, as always. Thanks a lot for coming back and staying with me here on My Left Eye. If you have been a member recently, perhaps you were generously gifted your membership by another fantastic supporter of the channel, then please do consider renewing that if it runs out. Oh, that's coming up soon. So these are all lovely people who've been supporting the channel. And of course, I'll be back with you over the weekend for the Sunday live stream. Keep an eye out for the start time on that one. Hit the notification bell. Also, please, everybody who's listening live right now, please do hit the thumbs up button. Helps this stream reach a wider audience. for people who want to watch back on the replay. I'm going to start to bring things to a close now, but also if you're watching back on a replay, please consider using Super Thanks or the Don't Buy Me a Coffee page if you'd like to help support the channel and show solidarity for just the price of a tasty hot beverage. I try and check in with you guys as many times during the week at 10 o'clock as I can, schedule prevailing. Keep an eye out, there's no set days at the moment, just literally weekdays at 10. As I said, there's also the bumper Sunday live stream every week, usually as well. I'll be returning to a PMQs based live stream as well, as soon as proper PMQs comes back into effect in the House of Commons, so please do keep an eye out as well. I'm going to check out if anyone's on. I'm going to try and raid into Helena's No Justice channel. Just bear with. I'm having a look who's about. Who can we raid into? Hope she's... okay, she's not on live at the moment. Don't think so anyway. Just double check. Go on. Go on the YouTube. Yeah, so do stick around. I'm going to try and raid into No Justice or another channel. Or I'll raid into a video of my own. If you've not seen the latest content, then hang around, I'll get it queued up. If there's not any... yeah, Helena's not live. Oh, right, let's see. Try and raid into the last stream or video. I'm sure there was a segment video that she had out recently. I think I watched one earlier. Yeah, there's that one. Just bear with. I'll just paste the URL in there if that doesn't work. No. Okay, so I'll raid into just my most recent one. Sorry, there's no screen. There's no streams currently scheduled. For anyone who I'm following on the channel, I should. I do follow quite a bit of stuff, but there's nobody on live at the moment. So what's it called? There we go. Right, I'll get this sorted while I just play out the intro-outro music. But thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for joining me again on the Brews at 10. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope to see you on Sunday as well. If not, then during next week for another episode of Brews at 10. Don't let the bastards grind you down. I've been Lefty and you've been fantastic. Until next time, take care of my Lefty. I'll be seeing you soon.